The first session of our day today is a very interesting topic: smarter machines, more informed decisions. In this session, we will explore the evaluation of the web, from Web 1.0 to the anticipated Web 4.0, reflecting the growing emphasis on interactivity, intelligence, and the integration of humans and machines. The era of transition has led to investments in data infrastructure, data governance, intelligent machines, and AI-powered decision making. Now, let's harness the power for a smarter and more competitive world. To present the session, we would like to call upon John Paul, the Chief Digital Officer at STEMsite India Therapeutics. A seasoned transformation chief, John comes with over 22 years of experience in marketing, both digital and offline, IT and digital strategy and transformations as well. John specializes in driving growth through business strategies, product management, content marketing, IT cloud transformations, data science, and business analytics. So pretty much an all-rounder in every way. John's expertise spans multiple industries, including healthcare, financial services, retail, CPG, FMCG, and software services too. So, let's hear it from the man himself and welcome on stage the Chief Digital Officer at STEMsite India Therapeutics, John Paul. Can we have a round of applause?
Looks like we completed all our discussions right there. Well, of course, it's technology transformation. What an era that we are all in. And technology is transforming businesses, technology is transforming processes, technology is transforming people. And we wake up with the technology, we end the day with technology. That's where we are. And next one. Of course, I think he is already opened the door of where we were and where we are today. And so Web 1.0, static data consumption. Web 2.0, it's more like the user-generated data. So we started generating more and more data. It became more engaging, it became more active. And a lot of the data started generating with that Web 2.0. And Web 3.0, it's pretty much all the semantic web, which is pretty much the AI, your ML, machine learning practices, plus your data infrastructure, which is the platform solutions. A lot of this advanced technology starts coming in. So the question is how do I start justifying my ROI? Wherever you walk in, you have to justify the ROI because you're seeking the investments from the board of directors, or you have to somewhere you have to define the IT project to suit the kind of market shifts that we have, or the technology shifts that we have. So this is one of the McKinsey study which says companies are already seeing 20% of their earnings before EBITDA contributed by artificial intelligence, for one of the example, and more likely to engage in data practices, those companies. So which means a lot of the smart workflows, or you're talking about the seamless interactions between the humans and the machines, whatever we're trying to do today, it's by 2025, it's going to be on your company's balance sheet. So that's where we are heading to. And if you ask me, I think a lot of the discussions that we had just over the cup of tea, I'm one of the examples who have gone through this ROI and starting at around 2017 and trying to justify ROI in terms of infrastructure, the platforms that we bring in terms of all the data science and emerging platforms that we bring in, and many of the initiatives that we drive to drive the revenue. And in terms of marketing, I've grown the revenue of 2x, 2x to 3x kind of a revenue. And in terms of data infrastructure, I've optimized the cost by 40%. And in all these things, that's where it makes a lot of sense when you start, getting all these technologies to use in the business. I would say, not everything is feasible, or I think everything looks, tar as zameen par, you start seeing all the letters jumping up. That's how all the emerging platforms looks like. But you got to understand the way you can use. Look at your business cases, look at your business objectives, rather than looking at okay, this technology has come, this AI has come, machine learning has come, tomorrow the nanotechnologies are going to come. So where am I going to put those technologies? No. You have to look at very simple, a small case study using generative AI can get you a lot of income. And that's how the journey has to be started to get to the balance sheet. If you ask me, the next 2 years or next 1.5 years, if you're going to be on the company's balance sheet, of course, I think there's a lot of preparation that we require. And this is one of the slide to help you understand like where the industry is going towards. So if you look at all the industries where they're investing money across all these things, and platform solutions, modern data architecture, data governance security, and it's all about data lakes. And why it is so important, platform solutions? Because you can't have the different systems and you can't have API integrations, you can't manage all these things. You can't have different platforms to do these things. So having a one platform solution where everything sits, your database part of it, like your logs are part of it, and it's your seamless integration between your analytics platforms, your emerging platforms, all the new technologies that you bring in, and plus your databases. And today you can integrate your social media data, and which we have done it in the marketing, part of the marketing and part of the customer service, where you can have a omnichannel kind of an environment, and where you can address the customer queries right there on social media and from your platform itself. So that's the kind of advancement which we have with the technology that's coming up. The rise of low code and no code. That's one of the beautiful things that's happening, because skill sets is very difficult to manage having the AI and ML, especially data engineers and all look at the data scientists. Data engineers is a new thing that's evolving today, because data itself is a challenge. When you get your demographic data, or your financial behaviors, or you talk about your database, pretty much will have a transactional data with you. But you need the social media data to talk about it. You need the browser history. People are coming to my website, they're browsing a lot of these things. You need a browser history to look at what is their trend look like, and how do I tackle them in terms of having my products posted for them. So a lot of these things you require, and that's where your no code is very, very important to go and look for some of these no code platforms where you can quickly have your functional expertise or functional experts get onto these platforms and start driving some revenue. And evolving roles, of course, you guys know very well, where the investments are going. And embrace AI and ML. Coming to AI and ML, and generative AI is already seeing a ton of improvements across the functions. And if you ask me, I think it is, whether you talk about the customer-centric or the employee-centric, and pretty much you're looking at the productivity of the revenue. These two verticals, I think pretty much you can use the generative AI, a lot of these AI practices, which will address these things. The next word comes when you have to predict something to do. That's when you don't have to go with the advanced methodologies. You have to go start with the very simple prediction methods like Netflix has done it. And we are doing a lot of these practices in-house too. So what we typically do is a lot of this data, take your whatever data you have in the database, plus bring some of the social media data, bring the browser history data. A lot of these people who comes, and if you have customers who come to your website, and pretty much all the data is available for you. You can integrate easily. So all this data comes very much for you to do this analysis. And of course, the empowering functional experts with the data, AI, and ML engineering. That's where I connect the second point right there. Because many times what we do is investing into data scientists, a lot of this skill sets, it's going to be very, very expensive. Sometimes you hire one resource, I can manage, or two resources okay, let me manage this way, but it doesn't work like that. And today skill sets they are in a different world, and they just come not even 1 year they would keep jumping. So how do you manage all these things? So that's where look for the low code, all these platforms. Even forget about low code. If you ask me, a lot of these emerging platforms, AI-based platforms, which comes starting from simple, generate the content, which is more which will get you more click-through rates, which will get you more impressions on when you launch these campaigns. Look at the AI platforms for the image generation, which will give you very personalized images, looking at the kind of audience that you have. So a lot of these platforms are pretty much emerged, and which are all there in the market. So it's all about the choices that we make and how well we choose the platforms to run these things. And that's all. I think that's where a lot of these investments are going. So this is the investments where they're heading to. And this is one of the trend what we have for the enterprise technology adoption momentum. If you see on the one, the S shape on top, that is where a lot of the implementations have happened today. So that includes your advanced connectivity, applied AI, then the cloud edge computing, generative AI. A lot of these things are pretty much stable and getting to the standard position. Which means, connecting back to that first sheet, where I talked about the McKinsey's insight, and very soon AI and ML, whatever the technologies that we invest, that's going to be on the corporate balance sheet, and it becomes more standard. And the second vertical, where you see, which comes the pretty much on using the advanced prediction, etc. That's where a lot of this still not in use for the customer centric or the employee centric. But they are taken I think some of these companies are very much done it. For example, I gave the example of Netflix. Netflix is what kind of genre they have to launch when, and how which kind of audience they have to launch it. Pretty much they gather all this data, and if you look at today, go to Netflix, it's more personalized for you. So a lot of these companies are pretty much done it. Even the websites or some of these e-commerce launches that we do on our own websites, and we could use these which are pretty much available. These extensions are pretty much available for you. So you can integrate and start making it your website start looking like e-commerce, and having those products and services pretty much cater to that. So that's how you start driving getting the adoption and get to that the fully scaled kind of an approach. And tech adoption momentum, of course, the data is definitely a challenge, but somewhere we have to start. Having said that, I think it's some of the things will not leave you. I think it is you have to get the behavioral data, you have to get the social data, and that's when you are able to give people what they need. And when the moment you get into customer centric, and which is definitely not easy for you, and which is not a B2B, which is more a B2C kind of an environment. If the page is not loading to a customer, let's say the 2 seconds, they will leave you out of the page. So you lose the customer. So that's the kind of a pressure that we have. The competition is one of the pressure, or customer expectation one of the pressure, and we have a very tech advanced customers, who are getting into this kind of a business, for products and services what they require. And just for example, I'm from healthcare. Right now at the healthcare, working in the healthcare industry. If you look at the healthcare, lot of the connections that they happen at the local, at the ground level with the doctors, and those data is pretty much not available for you today. And ton of clinics what we have at the ground level, you will not get the data. So only when they go into some of the groups, the bigger hospitals, and that's when we are able to capture some data and make some assumptions. But some of these learnings we definitely get from pharmacies, which are at the ground. What kind of medicines they buy. So they are able to help us. One of the insights is if you talk about the pregnancy or the mother and baby journey, what we're looking at, the kind of people, the audience who asks for this pregnancy kits or any of these tablets or any of the medicines, that's the kind of keys to it. So who are able to give those data? So identify the sources. So they will be able to help you with some data to find out the similar audience what I have, and similar audience what's in the market. Can I compare and get some similarities to do something there? I think that's the kind of the implementation that we have to look for. So obviously data-backed innovation, enhanced customer insights, a lot of this comes in very, very handy. And if once you start driving a small experiments, or when you try to test the customer and you're able to make some impact, trust me, the day you make your customers get prospects for you, that means you are at the scale what I showed you at the 5. You will have used the generative AI, you will have used the personalization at that level. Because the lead that comes in and has to become a customer, there's a lot of work that we have to optimize in the funnel level. And once you become a customer, and he becomes a channel for me to get the leads. And that's where I'm talking about many of the prediction technologies. If you talk about the AI and ML practices, some of the generative AI practices will come in very, very handy, because you have to personalize to that level and create that kind of an experience, so that your customers are so happy creating that NPS. That NPS will start driving it becomes one more channel for you to get more audience with. And this is one of the successful projects which personally which I have witnessed, where your NPS is pretty much contributing to 20% of business. And being in healthcare, so if you look at the NPS benchmarks, it's roughly around 38 or 39 for the healthcare, and we are at 41 NPS. I think that's the kind of benchmarks which we achieved, and that's pretty much possible when you start making sure every touch point that you have with the customer is taken care of. and communications, and the way before they expect some of the information has to be go, and we make it very personalized emails which goes to the customer, and make it very very customer centric, so that that NPS starts driving your more audience, your referral starts driving. So that's how we started growing the referrals, and that's one of the examples for you. And of course, I think it is to highlight some of the practices and which has really yielded the results. The first one is healthcare, I already explained. The other part, touching the service part, the marketing part, some of these, the logistics part, reducing the time to customer when you ship the product or the service. A lot of these things which is pretty much possible today using these emerging technologies. And the first case which I put in here may not be a good case for the Indian market, because nobody wants to optimize the business, that's revenue that's coming up. But it's one of the ways that we look at the customer experience. And apart from this, I give the example of pharmacies, where you can collect the data and they start making that predictions much better. And at the ground level, because the data is not available at the ground level, and to get that similar kind of audience. And apart from this, the manufacturing is another example, where the food processing, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen the Swiggy and Zomato, a lot of these things. But not only that, even the food recommendations, what people would like, because the kind of food they consume. So based on that, we could predict the kind of interest, or the kind of the food patterns, the people would like or the families would like. And that's the other example. And retail and e-commerce, a lot of giants, including the Netflix, a lot of stories there. And especially e-commerce, when you talk about, and your own product and services can be of that e-commerce kind of a thing, e-commerce kind of a platform. You don't have to go every time and launch the products on Amazon. You don't have to go every time launch the product Flipkart. But rather, can you make your websites also pull the traffic from there? Can you make your websites the e-commerce kind of a websites, which is pretty much easy, having a lot of this emerging technologies today. And a lot of these extensions are pretty much available, where when the person comes, you can create the interest, create engagement. The moment he comes, make sure you don't lose him. So, lot of the engagement, whether you talk about making sure the awareness messages that you send out to him, the communications, or you talk about any conversions funnels that you're looking at, product recommendations, or similar products that you're recommending, or some of the events that he has, making sure you have some messages of communication, and touch those events or the occasions or the holidays or events that we have across the calendars. I think a lot of these things pretty much starts that ROI to justify why you have to invest. And one other question is, as an IT head or as a digital head, when you talk about all these things, of course I see a lot of these industries are doing, but where do I start? What kind of a budget I should have? Globally they look at as 70, 20, 10 kind of a principle, which means 70 is pretty much to manage your own executions, whatever you have on the ground. And 20% is for the new initiatives, and 10% is for 10% of the budget you have to keep it for experiments. Experiments is the only way that which you can drive all of these things. I mean, it is not easy. I know that the board of directors won't agree to handle this kind of a budget, but the moment your new initiatives starts giving you that confidence, trust me that not 10%, they'll give it at 15% to experiment on all of these things. So that's how you start making a pitch for your board of directors. And of course, transportation logistics, I don't have to explain. I think the kind of experiences what we have today with all the GPS tracking, the kind of tracking that we get, and the time of it, expect to deliver the product. So that reducing the time itself, I think it's not 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Your product comes very, very quick today. And today, groceries people order from home, they get it in 15 minutes. So that explains how fast they are driving all these things. I know that they require a lot of these resources on the ground to do this, but at the same time, the kind of technology they brought in, they can optimize the resource utilization. A simple example is the person based on the pin codes and area he can cover, and your generative AI can tell you that the whom to have, how many he can deliver within a span of the 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours, and what kind of pin codes that he can cover and the distance that he can cover. A lot of this your generative AI is able to do that, and many of the practices your LLMs can help you with language translation, which is one of the difficult part in India if you talk about. So your language models will help you to translate like the many of the Indian portion to the local languages so that like you expand the market. One of the things is like and how much ever the business launch the products or the services like somewhere I feel that there's a certain segment of customers like which is 4% or 5% of Indian population always on this kind of platforms like where easily they can get easily they become a customers or like that's where like pretty much we are struggling to make sure like our market stays. But the expansion beyond that is only possible when you have your product or services goes in different languages and touch those customers with the experience that you provide. So that's pretty much what I had. I'm sure like you would have got some insights into. And of course like I think smarter machines, more informed decisions, and a lot of the data-driven decisions are very, very important for you because when you think like it's when you carry an umbrella thinking that it's going to rain, and trust me, I think you'll be more confident as a leader. And that's how I've seen the entire my career and looking at all these practices and whether it can drive, where I can make a difference. So just look at your business case, just look at your pain points in the business, what I can catch. Looking at these case studies, looking at these examples, I just go and look at like my org structure, my functions, what are the pain points. I look at those pain points to address first. Do I have ready solutions? You don't have to build it. You don't need the AI ML engineers and to just come in and like and start a team and do all these things. But the question is, your domain knowledge is one side if I put it, and the other side like if I have to put the expertise of all these technologies, just look at like how much you can have your functional expertise with the low code or the no code can deliver a lot of these things. But when you require very high coding skills, I think it is better you partner with someone who's very good in the market, who can deliver something good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. John, we request you to be on stage for just a little more while. If anybody in the audience has any questions for John, then we would love to take that up. Sure, sir.
Superb presentation. One point is you mentioned about NPS. So how do you calculate that 30%, 40% you mentioned?
Yes, there's an NPS calculation where you look at the responders, 9 and 10. And there's a calculation like how you calculate. And so
are you saying that the rating is 40% or you are saying response is, because normally it's a level of NPS response that comes in to rate where you are as an organization.
It's a ratio of like the number of responders to the how many have responded 9 and 10 of the scale between 1 to 10. So that's how we look at that.
It's typically a difference measure. I think your promoters less distracted.
Absolutely. The detractors.
9 and 10 less. 4
I do drive that, but I was a little bit confused on the point of 30 to 40% that you mentioned. So that's why the question came.
No, I said your NPS, the kind of NPS that you have, the focus on NPS, the kind of initiatives that we have done, and has created a referrals for us, the business for us, which is more like 24%, which we have seen, and which is a reference, like where your customer becomes a channel for you to drive the kind of leads, and who are converting very well actually.
John, thank you for a delightful session and sharing your experiences from your industry. Very specific, industry-specific question for you.
Sure.
Inside your data kitchen, right, where your data scientists and analysts are looking at the data, you're handling PII and PHI information, which is very, very critical from security perspective. How do you manage that? Because considering the amount of data that you're looking at and
Right.
exposing internally,
Right.
as well as the models to the external world, how do you tackle this?
Yeah, I don't want to name the vendor, but we have a data lakes in place. And we started this exercise like the few years back. And getting all the data structured is very, very difficult, trust me. And once the exercise is over, then it is easier because you set up a process to have the incoming data automatically get structured. So data lakes is the best approach, where like you have everything is pretty much laid out. But the first 1 year, and where you have to put a tremendous effort in making sure that your own data is well structured, number one. Second thing is, how do you integrate your social media data? Your, all this, like, the campaigns that you launch across your Google, your Facebook, and a lot of the social data together. And plus, like, you can buy external data. As I said, like, you will not get the one-to-one data kind of a thing. You will always get more like a similar audience kind of a data. So that's where, like, pretty much enough for you. So the similar behaviors, like, someone is exhibiting this, like, I can predict my persona. And who can be a persona of certain product, who can be a persona of, like, the certain segment, and which is more than enough for me to get that. So across all these things, and integrations is a key. So when you integrate, make sure the structure follows the integration. And some of the unstructured data, which is very, very difficult, and right now, like, we're just keeping the unstructured data as unstructured, where your AI can still handle up to some extent. But that's okay. Like, it's a learning that happens every day, and, like, I'm sure, like, one day you will get to that level where you will not have any more unstructured data in future. That happens because, like, your social media, all these platforms are getting very powerful day by day, and they will make sure, like, one day, I think, give you that very structured data. But that pain point is always there. I think, but when I look at, like, a lot of this, okay, like, I have to do this, but, they have the data challenges. How do I handle it? Everything looks like, as I said, like, Tarazam code, the keywords, you start line, you don't know how to handle it. But you have to start somewhere, and everything starts falling in place. Thank you.
You talked about data acquisition from external sources. How is it easy? How much easy it is to acquire data from external sources? For example, maybe your health channel partners, or maybe even hospitals. I don't know what your sources are, but given the information it has,
Right.
do you get, and is it easy to get those data?
Very easy to get.
It's scary.
No, it's very easy to get. You have a lot of these platforms. All the giants, you talk to them, all the giants, like, who have this, who handles the cloud platforms, I think pretty much they'll have the data. You talk to the credit card industry, and they will give you the data at a level that you won't get that, like, there is a data privacy and data governance is taken care from that. But there's a certain level, like, they start giving you that, they start sharing you the data, like, where you can see the financial behavior. And if you're looking at target audience, like, I'm looking at prime audience, like, who are in the IT industry, who spends are, like, between this and this, I think pretty much, like, you're able to get that. But you're able to target them on their platform. And you have this integration to your database.
And even about our records, for example, we visit doctors.
Right.
Do you also get that kind of data?
They will have. We are buying a lot of this data from pharmacies. They have data. And nowadays, like, you go to pharmacies, like, I think a lot of them have store the data. They give you 10%, they enter the data, like, the database, and then only they share. And everyone, like, who provide the bill will have the data. And with that, like, everyone who have the online deliveries, they will have data stored with them. And you talk about all the credit transactions of across the country, and based on certain states or whatever, like, if you want to launch certain things, where do I launch, which city I have to launch. So they will start sharing the data. So in fact, like, you can have all your campaigns, your targets launched on their platforms when people come on their websites, on their portals. But once they interact, you start getting the data back in the system. So until they come as a signal and to your system, you cannot call them or you cannot handle them, but you can definitely use their platforms integrated, so where you can go ahead and target them with all your campaigns, with all your awareness programs. You can do all that things. Yes.
Thank you.
Of course, there are restrictions. If you ask me, I think it is. There are restrictions, like, when you launch certain SMS campaigns or WhatsApp campaigns, things like that. Like, I think people, not everyone you can reach out. And by mistake, if you reach out to someone, like, who is having that tag of, like, and do not call me. And 3 times if you do that, and, like, your license will be gone for any more promotions. So remember, I think digital is pretty much the proof for everything that you have. The moment they come into the system using any of these digital avenues, and you have the logs with you, and you can always provide those logs to say that, I think there is certain intent from these kind of customers or these kind of prospects, and that's how, I think it's now I can keep it. So your engagement starts there, but your reach can go across any of these platforms, as long as it's the channels of email or social or whatever. And that's how I think it's pretty much we do the Facebook campaigns using IP-based. Even if people come and they don't respond to us, they're the same audience, even if people convert, I go back and target them on social media. So I hope many of you have seen. Somewhere you touch anything on a product or service, or go to any website or anywhere, and you come back and I'm sure there will be a feed coming on product and services you would have been looking for. I think all these things are pretty much possible. It's just that I think you start exploring, and I'm sure that a ton of things are already available. And it's just that where is your priority? What question you want to answer? And based on that, I'm sure a lot of these resources will be very much useful.
Thank you so much, John. We request you to take a seat.